My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes the loudest thing you can ever say is nothing at all. When you've loved someone deeply, poured into them selflessly, and been there at every turn, it's easy for them to become blind to your presence. They start assuming you'll always be there, always answering, always giving, and that's where the shift begins, not in anger or punishment, but in self-respect. When you finally stop over-explaining your worth, when you take a step back, not to hurt, but to heal, you create space. And in that space, something powerful happens, awareness. He begins to notice the silence where your laughter used to live. He starts replaying the way you used to check in, care, love, and listen. The absence becomes an amplifier. Everything you gave starts echoing louder than when you were actually there. At first, he might not notice. Maybe he's distracted, maybe he's distant, maybe he's comfortable. But as days stretch and your name stops appearing on his screen, as your voice fades from his day-to-day rhythm, he starts to feel it. The energy shifts. The attention he once ignored now feels like a loss. He wonders why the air feels heavier. He doesn't say it out loud, not yet, but something's off. And deep down, he knows it's you. The girl who always showed up isn't showing up anymore. And it's in your quiet absence that he's finally forced to confront what he's been overlooking all along. Because people don't learn through comfort, they learn through contrast, and your absence creates the contrast that makes your presence unforgettable. You see, it's not about being petty or playing mind games. It's about reclaiming your energy. You were never meant to chase love. You were meant to inspire it by being rooted in your worth. When you walk away without drama, when you stop repeating yourself and allow silence to speak on your behalf, it shakes him. It forces him to feel, not just think. That's the real psychology of it. Not manipulation, but realization. He realizes what he had when it's no longer there to reach for. That's when he starts connecting the dots. He becomes aware of the weight you carried in the relationship. He becomes aware of the comfort you provided. And the truth hits him in the quiet moments. You were never ordinary, and now that you're gone, he can't ignore that anymore. You think giving more will make him stay. You think constant texts, late night calls, proving your loyalty over and over will make him realize what he has in you. But the truth is, attention doesn't create obsession. It creates comfort. And comfort breeds complacency. It's in the absence of attention that real reflection is born. When you stop trying to be seen and start choosing to be still, something shifts. He's no longer being fed the constant reminders of your presence, and suddenly, he's alone with his thoughts. That's where obsession begins, not when you're chasing, but when you've gone quiet. He starts remembering the sound of your laugh, the fire in your eyes, the way you made him feel safe when the world felt cold. And it begins to haunt him, slowly at first, then all at once. It's when you disappear from his routine that your impact becomes undeniable. When he can no longer reach for your reassurance, your softness, or your strength, he starts to realize he never appreciated it while he had it. Your absence forces him into reflection, and reflection is a dangerous place for someone who took you for granted. That's where the memories become vivid. That's when the little things, your scent, your sarcasm, your presence, start looping in his mind. And he won't be able to stop it, because the human heart always aches for what once felt like home. He'll scroll through old messages, replay your voice in his head, maybe even start typing a message he never sends. That's the power of walking away, not because you want him to chase, but because you finally stopped chasing yourself. You didn't manipulate him into caring. You gave him the gift of time to feel what he was too distracted to see. And once he sits in that silence long enough, once he looks around and realizes no one else fills the space you once did, obsession creeps in, not because you tried harder, but because you let go, because you chose reflection over reaction. You didn't beg for attention. You created a world where he had to miss you to understand you. And that's where the real shift happens, when the girl who was always there stops showing up, and the boy who thought she'd never leave suddenly can't stop thinking about her. That's not attention, that's obsession, and it only ever begins when you stop giving and start becoming. You don't need to shift to be loved. You don't need to shrink yourself, soften your fire, or stretch beyond your breaking point just to be enough for someone else. That's not power, that's performance. And the truth is, the moment you stop trying to please him is the moment he starts seeing you differently. There's something magnetic about a woman who knows who she is, who doesn't apologize for her strength, who doesn't dim her light to fit inside someone else's shade. That's when you become unforgettable. You're no longer bending for validation. You're standing in your truth, and that quiet confidence, it's louder than any desperate attempt to keep someone interested. You don't need to beg him to care. When you become unapologetically, you give him something real to be obsessed with. Pleasing keeps you in a cycle. You overgive, overthink, overextend, and the more you do, the more invisible you become. Because people don't obsess over what's always available, always agreeable, always desperate to prove worth. They obsess over what feels authentic, and authenticity is found in being, not in pleasing. When you stop molding yourself to his preferences and start honoring your own, that's when your energy shifts. You stop walking on eggshells and start walking in power. You don't do it to punish him. You do it to free yourself. And that freedom radiates. He'll feel the shift. He'll sense the difference. And he'll either rise to meet you or fall behind watching you glow. You weren't born to be his comfort zone. You were born to be your own home. And when you stand tall in that, without asking for approval, something incredible happens. He becomes drawn to the version of you that's no longer trying to impress him. Because real power isn't loud, it's unwavering. It doesn't seek to be liked. It stands firm in self, worth. And once you stop living to please and start living to be, that's when he starts chasing not just your attention, but your essence. That's when the obsession grows, not with the girl who gave up everything to be chosen, but with the woman who finally chose herself.